Let's do this thing. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Shift Method podcast. As always, I'm your host, Coach Damien Michael here. And I have with me another amazing close friend, but it's going to be kind of a different conversation today. Yeah, we're going to cover stuff about personal training. But we're also going to talk about some wearable fitness technology, something that I've been using very recently, and I'm very excited to have my friend on here to talk about it. And that's my friend, Claire Pardo. Claire, go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi, everyone. I am Claire Pardo. As Damien said, I'm very excited to be here today.
Very nice. So, Claire, can you kind of just tell everyone a little bit about, what you do work-wise right now? And then we'll kind of go into your fitness background a little bit, kind of like your personal background.
Yeah, so right now, I currently work for Whoop. Whoop is a fitness wearable, as Damien said, and I am on the software team in membership services. So I deal with like a lot of coding, things like that. But yeah, I work for Whoop and I love it.
You do coding for Whoop.
I read coding. You can never expect me to code.
I was going to say, I'm like, wow, I didn't know you could code, Claire. Damn.
No, in my dreams.
Very, very cool. So in terms of that, like, what is kind of like a day at work typically look like for you at Whoop?
I feel like I can't even answer this because everything is always changing. It is technically still a startup. So like a day in the life at Whoop is just ever changing. Sometimes I help train people. Sometimes I take phone calls. But a lot of the day is me spending time helping people with their software issues. And I actually just started doing that about a month ago, around a month. So I'm new to software, but it's fun. It's ever changing. So it definitely keeps you on your toes, but it's definitely enjoyable.
Gotcha. So say someone's having like a update issue or the watch isn't responding properly, you're zoned for like a particular area, they get in contact with you and you kind of help them with their issue essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. And most of it is like email or in-app chat. So not too many angry people.
Gotcha. That's good to hear, right? I know customer service life can be a little bit rough sometimes.
Honestly, like Whoop people are so about Whoop that it's not like there's not very many angry people, which is really awesome.
That's good. They just like, hey, just get my device to work and we're good to go.
Yeah, pretty much.
Very, very cool. Now, if you can talk about it, how did you kind of find out about the job? How did you get involved and what made you like want to go work for Whoop? Like, why did you want to do this?
Honestly, I was going to join so preface, Whoop is a subscription like model technology company. So it's like a membership. So I was going to join the membership and I was like, I don't like my job right now. So I'm going to apply. So I looked at, they were hiring, and it's remote. So it was perfect because, I'm like a homebody. I love to be home with the dogs. So I just applied and I got an interview, and then it's like super hard to get in. I'm not going to lie. So the first time I applied, I did not get it. And I did not get the job because it's just very competitive. And then one of their, I guess, recruiters reached out to me and she's like, hey, we really liked you. Please apply again. So I did, and I got it. So ever since then, I've just been living and loving Whoop.
Very, very cool. And then you've had other wearable tech in the past, right? You had an Apple Watch, I think.
Yeah, I've actually had Fitbit. That was like way back in the day, like when it was new.
That's right. I still got mine somewhere laying around, but I'm demoing right now. So
there you go. But then I switched over to Apple Watch. I've had a few Apple Watches and now I'm on Whoop. And I actually don't wear my Apple Watch. I give it to Ryan, my fiance's mom. So
very, very cool. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about some comparisons as we dive into kind of the specifics about what Whoop or what makes Whoop unique, because it's not just your typical like fitness tracker. It does much more. And we're going to talk about all the ins and outs of that in a little bit. So thank you for that. Kind of going into, I always like to, people I've worked with and you have some experience in the field outside of just the customer service side of things. You actually, I would still say you are a personal trainer, even though you may not be currently personal training someone. You're always a personal trainer through and through. So kind of tell us about your fitness background, like how you got into fitness just personally, and then eventually how you moved into it professionally.
Yeah, so growing up, I just always played sports. Like I've always just been very active. I did track, volleyball, softball. And then I tore my ACL and that like took me out of sports for like quite a bit because like I was honestly really scared to get back into it. So then when I met Ryan, he was actually pretty big into fitness and we started working out together. Um, so then I just started working out regularly. When I got to Purdue, I loved rec well, so I would go there all the time, made lots of friends, so that made it easy.
I think you got that
Um,
Purdue Rec Well shirt on, don't you? Is that?
yes, I
Yes,
do.
it
I always
is.
got a
That's right.
rep.
That is one of the most
Always.
comfiest sweatshirts I've ever owned that was lost in 2 seconds because my girlfriend claimed it. So that's how that works, you know?
Shout out to Emily.
Shout out to Emily.
um, but yeah, so ever since then I've just been super active and then I just love working out. I do CrossFit right now. I've done classes. I feel like I've done it all. I've done cycling classes. I've done like my own programming. But yeah, being active has just really made me love fitness. And that I think that kind of steered me into that direction in college because I was like the type that I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something I enjoyed and something I was passionate about. So that has really brought me into it. Um, but yeah, I think that's pretty much my fitness background.
Yeah. And so, okay, you have this upbringing, you're heavily involved in sports, your, boyfriend at the time, now fiance, he's involved. So like you kind of have the support system. And then of course you get to college and you're working for Purdue Rec Well, which is where I got to meet you. So when you got to Purdue and you decided to pursue personal training, how did you kind of get into that? What made you make the decision like, I want to be a personal trainer, I want to do this?
I feel like the big part of it is helping people. Like I've always just been like I want to help people in life. So that's like my main goal and I think that was a good way at the time for me to do so. I got to meet a lot of people. Like I still am in touch with a lot of my clients and like getting to see them transform was huge for me because not even physically but like mentally and like confidence wise seeing people change was just huge for me.
Yeah.
And I think I saw the potential in that. And like I said, I knew I loved fitness, but I didn't really know what to do with it at that point. And I think that was a good way for me to like learn about the industry, get into it, see if it's something I wanted to do forever, and everything like that, pretty much.
Yeah. And similar to how a lot of my friends and colleagues that I met at Purdue Rec Well, you kind of followed a similar path, which is you started out as a fitness consultant, right? Good old blue shirt days working under me. And then you did the prep course, the ACE personal training prep course up at Purdue, and eventually got hired on as a personal trainer. And I always like to ask people, how did that feel to like, because the course it's tough, it's 8 weeks long, you're a full-time student, you're also working, I know at least one other job at the time, you're, all the other things that come along with being a college student, social obligations, everything. How did it feel to go through that course, pass the in-house exam, get your certification, and then finally be able to put on that Purdue Rec Well shirt and walk around being a trainer?
Oh, I felt like a badass. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like that interview process was pretty intense. Like
it is.
Physical assessments, like your walkthrough. We did like the written tests, things like that. Like that was probably at the time the most intense interview process I've done. But like I think that set me up for success in the future. 'Cause, I mean, real jobs are like that, maybe not like physically doing things. But I think it was a good learning experience. But yeah, I felt really cool after.
Yeah, and it's part of that like accomplishment thing, right? Like, things shouldn't be unnecessarily hard, but I wanted Purdue Rec Well, and with the help of people like you and Brendan and my supervisors, like we wanted it to be like, we're not just setting a standard, we are the standard of personal training, not just for rec centers. I mean, like for the area, for Indiana, for when people look at personal training programs, I want Purdue Rec Well personal training to be known. And part of that comes with setting up, big expectations, making things not difficult for the sake of being difficult, but because we have high standards, this is the process. And I think it was great because we got amazing people like you. And like you mentioned, it was real life, right? Like how did you feel going through that interview process, right? So for context, we would do, they do this 8-week intensive course, right? Meeting twice a week for 2 hours at a time, heavy, lecture, conversation, and practical application for 8 weeks straight, do a final exam, get certified. Then the interview process, they do the, group interview. You guys did the assessment interview, right? Where we tested your assessment skill, and then the program design / client interaction review, right? So this is like a 10, 11 week ordeal, right? So you go through all that, but as stressful as that was, when you got your first client, how smooth was the transition?
Oh, very smooth. And not only like the transition to having thing, just the transition, like having to go through that, it definitely just set you up for like expectations of like how you should be treating clients, things like that, which is super important because if you think about it, like personal training, somebody else's like life is in your hands. I mean, obviously we're not like doctors, but in a sense, so I think it definitely sets the like the tone of importance that these clients who are paying you, it definitely just gets you prepared for it.
Yeah, I'd argue I'd be doing y'all a disservice if I didn't make it, that rigorous and intensive, because then when you actually do get a real person in front of you and you have to confront all these things that we would talk about in practice, it's going to be like, oh God, I've never seen this before. What am I going to do? Versus, oh, I've done this example. Oh, Damien has put me through this, or, oh, I've worked with my classmates with this. I at least have some ground to stand on so I can start getting some real reps in with some real life scenarios. Awesome.
And I think too, it was also like, it was super helpful for people who are not kinesiology or exercise science majors who still wanted to pursue this.
Yes.
So like we had quite a few people who were like engineering students, but they did a great job because like you and Brendan and everyone like taught them the correct tool or gave them the correct tools to be able to be successful. And yeah, I think it just really broadened the horizons of who could do it rather than just exercise science.
Yeah, it definitely helps to have that background because the first half of the class is very like science based, which, Purdue engineers have no issue reading content and getting their hands on it. But yeah, we wanted to make sure like, hey, if someone has like the desire to like want to work here and to help people like doing it for the right reasons, like I'm not going to let like your degree program stand in the way. We had plenty of trainers that were from engineering, or even though nutrition is a health background, but it's not like kinesiology specific, like, and they were phenomenal. So yeah, I'm willing to work and, help with anyone that wants to help other people. So yeah, that was a really cool experience. That was really, really fun. Now, this can sometimes change over time when it comes to your training philosophy. So like when I say, what does it mean to be a personal trainer? Or like, what does personal training mean to you? Has that changed over time? Or if it has or hasn't, like, what is your personal training philosophy?
I don't know that mine has changed over time just because I feel like, I mean, you probably know this. I am who I am. Like I am bold. I am who I am and I don't really change. So I feel like my belief has stayed the same. But I think my philosophy is like balance. I don't like super one way or the other. Like you don't have to be super like lenient. But I think like having a good balance is important because you can enjoy your life too. Like you don't need to be so strict and act like you're a competing bodybuilder if you're just trying to lose weight for physique goals. You know what I mean? So like, yeah. I think it's important just for mental health because you can still attain goals while, having some balance, having the social life, being able to do things you want to do, and without sacrificing your mental health and like the risk of developing eating disorders or, overtraining, things like that, I think are really important to remember. So I would say balance is for sure my biggest belief.
Yeah. I'd argue that, if we don't include those things like, mental health or like other things, like we'll talk about like the sleep and other sides of your fitness or your wellness, right? You're missing the mark. Like even if you're working with professional athletes, like the extreme end of the spectrum, like those things are just as, if not more important in some context, right? So I like that
Totally.
you include that. It's fitness is so much more than just your physical well-being or your, physical stats of strength, power, endurance, whatever it is. It's, what's going on between your ears, and, how are you feeling, and how's your sleep, and how's your relationships. That's all part of being well and fit. So I like that you keep that. Very, very nice. Now,
I like some desserts.
well, I just remembered baking boiler. Like, is that still going on? I know with like planning for the wedding and everything, I'm sure you're busy, but
I really don't have time. Like, I've had quite a few people like reach out to me, but I've had to deny like 4 or 5 people just this like summer alone. But like, I just took one, so I'll have cookies in September, but it's just so time consuming.
When Claire has time, believe me, I will promote the heck out of him, because she makes, little context. Claire is a really, really good cook. Specifically, she's really good at baking, cookies, dessert, specializes in cookies, I would say, but like she can make basically any dessert that you want. And for a little bit, she was kind of doing this, independent contracting LLC style called Baking Boiler, like for Purdue, Boiler Up. So she would make these cookies. I think I ordered some for Mother's Day, if I remember correctly. Yeah. They were delicious, and they shipped all the way from Indiana to South Florida. They were great. My family liked them. The designs are beautiful. Like aesthetically, they're really cool. So yeah, if that ever opens up back up, I'll be promoting the heck out of it, because it's a really, really cool service. And you've done some really cool designs.
It's so time consuming.
Oh, thank you. I imagine.
Like for 1 dozen, it probably takes me at least 6 to 8 hours minimum.
Yeah.
So the return is just not there.
Yeah. Maybe one day in the future, though.
Maybe. Maybe when I'm not working in school. So
yeah, you're doing a lot, man. So you got your bachelor's in, was your degree titled, was it health and kinesiology, or was it applied? Kinesiology. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you're currently pursuing your master's, correct?
Yes. Master's in healthcare administration.
Very, very nice. And any future aspirations or plans, or just kind of, going along for the ride for the time being?
Kind of both. Like the reason I started it is like, I don't know there's a whole lot that I can do or that I want to do with a kinesiology degree anymore. Mm-hmm. I think it's great to have, but I definitely want more. So if I were to work in healthcare, I would want to work on policy change, because I think that the healthcare system is not good. So I just working on policy change, because like I said, I love to help people, and that's like a good way to mass help people. So
yeah,
maybe one day.
I agree. I remember sitting in my cubicle brainstorming ways to figure out like where you could take the public health interest. So I'm happy to hear that it sounds like it's going that way.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, you remember that whole thing? The Venn diagram and everything that I do?
Yeah, you're awesome.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. But no, that makes me happy, because like Claire said, when she did personal training, you'll notice common themes with a lot of the trainers I talk about, where it's the goal is to help people. And even way back when I did my first podcast with Elias, personal training is more so like the vehicle of helping people. But our purpose is pretty much, or our values are kind of unified, is we just want to help people. Fitness is just how we're doing it. People can help people in a multitude of ways. Claire has a really, really cool goal of working with public health and policy change. Like, how are we changing the structures, the laws on the book that are going to help give people better access to quality of life and quantity of life, right? So that's really noble work. And it makes sense because, again, if you know Claire, not only is she a people lover, I think you're just overall a living thing lover, right?
Yeah.
You have 3 awesome dogs. And she's even, done some rescue work with dogs. So she does a lot and cares a lot about just living things in general. So public health makes complete sense to me.
I was even vegan for a year.
You were, but food's good. And, like your favorite thing to eat is like hot dogs, dude. Like, I mean, the vegan dogs.
You're really going to expose me?
I'm exposing, man. I'm exposing. You like hot dogs, bro. And like, listen, I don't even want to know what a vegan hot dog tastes like, but I imagine it's not anything close.
I don't think I ever had one during my like time of being vegan, or even like I was vegetarian for 6 years too. I don't think I even had a vegetarian hot dog. They're just not, I'm sure they're not the same because I just love hot dogs.
Listen, man, no, if you're vegan, got respect for you. Keep doing your thing. I love meat. I'm not
It's like my guilty pleasure.
I'm not going anywhere, man. I will say, like, there was a short time where I did really like hot dogs a lot. I don't know why I stopped liking. I do really like Italian sausage with like peppers and
Not the
onions.
same.
What? Get out of here.
I love them, but they're not the same. It's not like, it's like that bad food, you know, like a corn dog. There's nothing
Right.
better than a corn dog.
I will say a corn dog, if the batter is done right, kind of
Slaps.
dangerous, man. Kind of dangerous.
Slaps.
Oh man. All right. Enough trolling on Claire with her hot dog addiction. Not gonna bash her anymore on that. Okay, so got a little bit of background about you, about your fitness background, how you got into the field, and kind of where you're going. Give a little context for people, right? Now I want to focus on kind of the meat and potatoes of the podcast, talking about what you mentioned is your current job, and that's talking about this guy, the Whoop Fitness Tracker, right?
Boy.
That's right, Team Whoop right there. So I know you kind of mentioned a little bit about it, right? Fitness Tracker. How exactly does Whoop work, right? So like, what are some of the features of it, and like what are kind of the ins and outs of the device?
Yeah, so it's got no watch face. That's important to note. A lot of people prefer watch face, but they basically did not do it to preserve all battery for data collection. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week data collection. It's done by photoplasmathography, or PPG, which is an optical sensor that basically reads your blood flow and changes in volume of your blood flow. So it just utilizes that technology 24/7 and takes that data and analyzes it. And the big difference between, like, say this and Apple Watch is it gives you actionable data. So I don't know if you've noticed, Damien, but the little like box, the text box that pops up, it's called Voice of Whoop, and it gives you advice on how to maybe improve your data, or tells you what trends in your data are caused by, and things like that, which I think is super helpful, because you can have so much data, but then you don't know what to do with it, especially if you're not really knowledgeable on the topic. So having those like pieces of advice or actionable data is very important, and it helps promote like not only behavior change, but also like fitness gains or whatever your goal might be.
Yeah. One, I actually like a lot of, I'll talk about all the things I like about Whoop. I will say when I first started, it was a little overwhelming, the information, but as I started using it more frequently, I saw how it could be beneficial to, like Claire said, someone who has like an exercise science major, right? Who has knowledge about like, oh, what is my strain score based on these calculations or these metrics, versus the everyday person who just wants to wear the watch and be told like, should I work harder? Should I get more sleep? It's very practical for both people, which is really cool. So if you're a fitness nut or like a fitness nerd, you're winning either way. So I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a little, for me even, it was a little bit overwhelming, but like you said, the more you explored in the app, helped a lot. I think that was a big thing for me, just getting usage and getting like my recovery days in. I think that helped a lot, but it's definitely worth it, I think.
Yeah, I say so. I use Fitbit for a long time. I think I've had Fitbit since 2011. I've used it. And I've gone through a few different models. I love Fitbit, by the way. No knock on Fitbit, especially like some of their newer models that are like they've got the waterproof integration, all that stuff. But I wanted to see, because Whoop does some really cool metrics, and I wanted to see kind of the comparison. So kind of jumping into that, right? Kind of what makes Whoop unique. Let's kind of go into these different features that it has, right? So the first one I want to talk about is called strain, right? This is one of its main metrics that it measures through its data collection. What exactly is strain, Claire, and how is it calculated?
So strain is basically, in short term, your cardiovascular load. So it measures your heart rate, or takes your heart rate, analyzes it, and sees how hard you're working. And this scale is 1 to 21, and it is based off of Borg scale. So the RPE scale, 6 to 20. They actually added a 1 to make it special and make it like Whoop's, Whoop's Borg scale.
Yeah.
So that's why it's 21 instead of 20. And it, like I said, it just basically measures your cardiovascular load over the day, versus like, I think Fitbit it is that does steps, and I think Apple Watch does too, which is highly unindividualized. Where the big thing with Whoop is strain is highly individualized because it directly measures your heart rate rather than your steps. Because like Damien, if you took 1,000 steps, it would be different than 1,000 steps for me,
Right.
and we'd be working at different like rates. So
Right.
1,000 steps for you is going to be nothing probably, and it's going to be more for me because I'm shorter,
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what strain is. And it is a logarithmic scale. So say you do, I'm probably jumping ahead, but say you do an activity that's an 8 strain, but your day strain was already 4. It's not going to be a 12 strain. It's going to like be scaled to your entire day.
Right.
And going into that, strain over a day is going to be like, so Whoop measures your strain over a day, which is like your cardiovascular strain over the day. And then it also measures your activity strain.
Okay.
Separately. So
Gotcha.
that's probably a lot.
Huh. So now here's a tricky thing. I'm curious about this. Of course, when you exercise in general, heart rate is going to generally go up. But a cardiovascular workout has a different cardiovascular demand than a resistance training workout. I do notice though, when I do my resistance training, I can still get my strain score up pretty decently. Of course,
probably
not as much
like a 7 or 8.
Exactly. Yeah. Somewhere around there, versus if I'm doing like an intense like basketball or hit session, it goes up much higher. Does it, when you enter like the different types of workouts, because Whoop has like a lot of different activities you can do, does that calibrate it differently, or is that more so just for categorization and data storage?
Basically for you. So it's like a tool for you just to see like, oh, I did weightlifting this way, and this is my strain for that. But yeah, it's really like a cardiovascular thing, measurement, just because that's really who it's aimed toward. And like you said, rest or doing resistance training is not going to be nearly as strenuous. While it is on your muscles, it does put stress on your muscles, but obviously we can't, take a biopsy of your muscles to tell you how hard you worked. So this is like the next best thing with that. But I will say, since we can't measure your muscular strain, it does play into it does go into your recovery score for the next day, because it does put stress on your nervous system.
Gotcha. Which may impact your heart rate, which Whoop will pick up.
Yeah. So it does track that, just not necessarily directly.
Gotcha. That makes perfect sense. Now, I also like that you mentioned the individualistic aspect of it, because the heart rate and the way your heart works is somewhat like a fingerprint, in the sense that everyone's is a little bit different from which we'll talk about, their heart rate variability, their patterns, their max heart rate, their general resting heart rate. So I like that it takes the individualistic approach instead of just steps. Because like you said, what's a step? A step to me versus a step to you. It's a uniform log or algorithm versus something that's an individualized algorithm for the person. So I like that aspect of it. And the data feels very personal to you when you have it. It's like, oh, these are my stats. This is my progress. This is my strain for the day based on what I'm currently doing or able to do, not like some generic thing.
Something to note too is that like a lot of things in fitness will compare you to the average like human or average age, whatever.
Yes.
Where this compares you to your own baseline. So I should have mentioned this earlier, but in your first 30 days, Whoop calibrates like your baseline for all of your metrics. So once you're fully calibrated, it will know your baseline, and it will continuously compare your current data to your baseline data. And then in addition to that, It recalibrates every 2 to 3 weeks, so your baseline is always changing and staying current to your body.
That's awesome, because if you're, let's say you just happen to get it at a very crazy time in your life or a really good time in your life, using that as a standard should change. And Whoop does constantly update your standard. That's really cool. That is individualistic.
Yeah, it literally is.
I like that a lot. Yeah, very, very cool. So like you mentioned, there is the, for the fitness goer who wants to just be told what to do, right? There's like your strain coach and all that, right? So can you kind of like explain how that works and what a strain coach is exactly?
Yeah, so strain coach will give you different zones. So it gives you, like, if you want to train optimally, which is balancing your recovery, which we'll talk about probably soon, your recovery and your strain for the day. And that basically means you're in balance. If you're training like in the restorative state, you are producing a lower strain than you are compared to your recovery. And then if you are overreaching, which is different, it's kind of similar in the fitness term. But overreaching, you're basically promoting fitness gains for that day rather than like a longer period of time. And that's when you're producing more strain compared to your recovery, basically more than what your body is prepared for.
Gotcha. That makes sense to me. Exercise science term, right? When we talk about overreaching, usually it's using like a hypertrophy sense, but we do talk about exercise science where, you built up this tolerance to fatigue or workload over time, and then you want to maximize the damage. It's actually exceeds what you're capable of. So some people call it a hell week, a top week or whatever you want to call it, overreaching week, as some people say. And then you then take that time to recover afterwards, where you go past probably what you can do enough to where you can recover, but it's very difficult. So that's kind of cool that they use some similar verbiage there.
Yeah, so it basically, strain coach will use that to almost not like train you, but give you recommendations or different zones to aim for dependent on your goal. So you can use it however you want to. So say you're just trying to maintain, you can be optimal, but if you're trying to train for a marathon, there are some days you're going to have to overreach or, what have you. But it is pretty cool. It just basically analyzes your recovery for the day before and gives you the information to do what you will with that information data.
Very, very cool. This I probably should have asked before we talked about strain, but I think it's cool to know because, I like to read research. I try and provide as much research and content for people. How was all this stuff figured out for Whoop in terms of like how to make these calculations and these algorithms and like where the research came from? Is it like one person founder? Is it like a body of people? How did that work?
There's a few. So how Whoop started was the CEO, Will Ahmed. He was a squash athlete at Harvard University, and he was tired of, like, he felt like he could get more out of his wearable, basically, and wanted a way to know to read his body and recover and use that information to then perform optimally for his matches. I think they're called in squash. But pretty much he then found the CTO currently to create this technology, and they did a bunch of research. They work very closely with like Harvard labs, and they have, I don't know exactly how they like chose PPG or how they decided on this technology or the design or anything like that. But like I said, they work closely with Harvard. They've done validation studies, so there's a peer-reviewed article. So I mean, it's legit.
Nice. Always like to hear the science side of it, right?
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So now that kind of ties nicely, actually. It's as if I planned that, even though I didn't, but it ties nicely to talk about recovery a little bit. So strain, kind of that first thing, right? Like how hard are you working? What's the physiological strain on your body? Now, on the other side, we have the recovery component of it. So from a Whoop standpoint, Claire, what exactly is recovery and how is it measured?
So recovery is a measure of your body's readiness to respond to stress, or you could say your body's ability to take on strain for that day. So it's like a percentage. So if I'm like today, I think I'm like 67% recovered or something like that. So
Beating
that's a
you,
good
by the
amount.
way. It's 71. Catch
I
up.
think Ryan's at like 71 too.
Yo, Ryan does good on the recovery usually, man.
You guys have very similar stats, like in
We
general.
do. Our heart rate variability, both of us, is very high.
Very good. I'm jealous. But I'll talk about that later because you can't compare. I always tell Ryan this all the time.
Good point.
You can't compare HRV.
Even though we're competing, we're always competing with ourselves only.
That's what I always tell people. But recovery. Okay. So what recovery is it takes your data from the previous day or night, depending on the metric, and it will analyze it and tell you how ready your body is to take on strain, cardiovascular strain. It could just be like stress, anything like that. And the metrics involved are HRV, which is heart rate variability, resting heart rate, your sleep performance, and your respiratory rate. So it uses all of those and then produces a score, like we were saying, 67 and 71, to tell you how hard basically to work out that day. Or how well how hard you can work out, I should say.
Right. And I like it too, because it kind of has like that, again, like Claire mentioned, it has your baseline is always adjusting. So it's adjusting your recovery, I'm guessing based on like your baseline recovery, depending on where you are in like your whoops tracking over that period, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very, very cool. Now, the two main ones that I want to talk about, because, sleep makes sense, right? Okay, which we'll talk in very specific detail at the end. But two that I think, in my opinion, got Whoop on the map is respiratory rate and heart rate variability, right? Those are kind of really unique features about it. Fitbit does kind of track sleep a little bit. And it measures some different parts of sleep, but the respiratory rate and the heart rate variability is really, really cool. So can you kind of just briefly go over it? We'll start with respiratory rate, what that means exactly, and like kind of how Whoop calculates that and uses it.
Yeah. So it's funny, like how that set out to you, because it really, especially in these times, like COVID is heavily respiratory. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons it's actually a newer feature. It wasn't always included. So that rolled out just around COVID times to help people track that. But it's tracked during your sleep. Throughout your sleep, it's just, uses the PPG to measure the blood flow volume, and it can measure your respiratory rate. And what's cool about respiratory rate is if you see spikes compared to your norm, it'll give you a graph. And if you're outside of the lines of your norm, then it's an indicator that could be there could be something going on. So like me as an example, I'm not saying it detected it or whatever, but I was not feeling good and I thought I had allergies. My respiratory rate went from like a 15 average, like a 17.5, which is a big jump. And it said, you may be sick. So I got tested for COVID and I had COVID.
Wow. I remember you telling that story, man.
It's crazy. But basically it's just how many times you're breathing per minute. And that's just an indicator of how hard how hard you work that day. It's an indicator of stress. It plays a role in homeostasis. But yeah, I thought that was like the biggest thing for me with respiratory rate. I feel like I was like, whatever. And then that happened to me. I was like, what in the world?
And like you mentioned, respiratory rate, like you said, is kind of for most people, like you have a very narrow, this is one of the things where you have a narrow metric for the most part, right? Like I think it's measured to the 10th, right? So like, I think mine floats around like 14.1, 14.2. It doesn't really change like at all, like maybe 1 or 2 decimal points, but that's really it. But to have like a spike of like 2, knowing that sounds like a pretty dramatic increase.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's definitely crazy.
Yeah, the fact that it could tell, which would make sense, right? It's a respiratory illness. So maybe like you're trying to get more oxygen into the body. So maybe you're taking greater breaths or more frequent breaths to compensate for it. So I just remember when you told that story, I was like, the watch mentioned that? Like, that's pretty cool that it was able to
you're like
give you
sold.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive, man. And yeah, especially like just from a public health standpoint, it's like that's a tool for people to like, make sure if they're not even with COVID, but like if you're sick and like maybe you haven't realized it yet, but you wake up, you're feeling kind of crummy and you're like, oh, how did I sleep? How did I do? And they're like, hey, like maybe you go get checked out, maybe see if you're healthy, or maybe you need to call in from work today or whatever. So that's a really cool thing about it. This one is the next one. Heart rate variability is the other really cool thing. So I'll be honest, when I've read a little bit of research here and there about heart rate variability, mostly from undergrad. My understanding is it's a general measure of your, it can be somewhat used in performance. Like people, if your heart rate variability is high, like maybe you have a better capacity for performance, or like it's used in Whoop with recovery, like a higher heart rate variability is indicative of higher recovery. But that's really all I know about it. Is there any kind of other things or metrics about it that we should know about?
Basically, it's your body's stress response. So it's a balance between your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous systems, which is pretty cool. So heart rate variability, in like, if I'm being super specific, is it's the difference in the time between heartbeats. So it's measured in milliseconds. But it's a really cool way or a really cool measurement, because like I said, it measures your different stress. So a lot of people will be like Ryan, for instance, like, oh, I got like 9 hours of sleep, but my recovery is like 2. Obviously I'm exaggerating, but like your HRV, if it's not high, your baseline a high recovery. And the HRV is, and yours probably is too, because very level-headed people. I feel like you stress well, and you know me, like I'm very emotional, like I'm a hothead, like my HRV is pretty low because I do not have a good stress response. And like, to me, that's like a big indicator of why my HRV is so low. And like I said, it's very individualized. So your baseline is different than my baseline. So I can't compare my baseline, which is probably like 70. I haven't looked lately. And your guys is like Brian's like in like 120 all the time. Like,
yeah, that's mine is somewhere in the hundreds.
It's crazy. So just, I guess the important thing is to know like what's normal for you, because like my stress response is likely never going to change. And like, that's just who I am. Like, and like they say normal is around like 40 to 120. It really depends. It changes with your age. It changes with your gender. So it's just very, very individualized, kind of like the whole thing, like Whoop is highly individualized. And I think that's like a big indicator of why we use that metric.
Yeah. It was funny because when I was looking back, I remember like recording the first few things asleep, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to rebrush up on heart rate variability, what it means exactly. And I was like, oh, so the time between my heartbeats is that high, or it changes that much. And I was like, wow, because my initial thought when I thought about it is that if it was low, maybe it's more like stable and consistent, and then maybe that would be quote unquote healthier. But it turns out it's the opposite. Usually you want to have it higher, and that shows that you're adequately recovering from, I guess, getting the most bang from your buck from your sleep, essentially, is a way to think about it.
Yeah. So your HRV can be measured anytime. This is kind of getting into the next part. Whoop measures it in the last 5 minutes of your last slow wave sleep cycle. And that is just because, like, why are you going to measure your HRV when you're running around? Like,
right.
It just makes sense. So HRV, it's very, so say you have a high HRV, right? Your parasympathetic nervous system is in balance with your sympathetic. Where if you have a low one, you have a high stress response, which is negative. So your parasympathetic will be lower than your sympathetic. So that's basically where that comes from.
Gotcha. Very, very cool. Last thing I want to talk about another cool feature of Whoop, again, other watches kind of have this, but I really like how it breaks it down while also tracking like your heart rate and heart rate variability at the same time. That is kind of the sleep analysis. So we all know what sleep is. You don't have to define sleep, right? You're in bed, but it's not just being in bed, although that may be one component of your sleep. So what are some of like what are the components that Whoop tracks when you sleep, like the stages, and what do they kind of mean?
It basically tracks like your REM sleep, your slow wave sleep cycle, awake, and then also like light sleep. But the big thing, what I find really cool, and I should utilize it more, if you track your sleep in Strain Coach, it is able to track your latency, which your latency is the amount of time it takes you to sleep. Do you let your sleep auto detect, or do you track it?
I think I auto detect.
Yeah, so if you manually do it, you can see how long it takes you to fall asleep. And it does that by analyzing your heart rate data.
Okay.
And that's why in the morning it takes time to process, because it's looking through all that data and then categorizing your sleep, stages, and then also how long it takes you to fall asleep. So your latency is likely like 2 minutes right now, but it's only trackable during or using Strain Coach, which is pretty cool to me, because I've never had a wearable that can do that. I should utilize it, but I'm honestly, my sleep is really bad right now. So, I think the cool thing is too, like I mentioned before, the voice of Whoop will tell you, hey, you only got 1 hour of REM. You're pretty prepared, or hey, you got a lot of REM last night. This is because you're not recovered. So it'll give you information like that that'll help you. And it'll also help you track your habits. So one thing too, sleep consistency. There's a thing called Sleep Coach. I'm sure you've noticed it. Sleep Coach will tell you, hey, to maintain sleep consistency, go to bed at this time, wake up at this time, and you need this amount of sleep to be prepared for the next day, which is pretty cool. And Ryan is super into his bedtimes from it. I don't follow it so much, but he's like, I go to bed right now. Whoop told me. But yeah, that's a cool thing, because I have used Fitbit and also Apple Watch, and I haven't had anything, one, that gave me actionable information, which I think is the biggest thing with Whoop. And then two, Apple Watch has like a battery life of a day, and Fitbit lasts a little bit longer than that. But my favorite thing is I literally don't have to take it off.
Nope.
You charge it while it's on your wrist, and
you can go in the shower and wash with it and clean it right away.
Yeah, so like I have never had something with that long a battery life that is actually tracking my sleep. So that's pretty cool to me.
It's funny because I used to never wear my Fitbit to sleep because I didn't like wearing watches to sleep. It annoys me. And I sleep pretty easily. I don't measure my latency, but if I did, I'd imagine it'd be a few minutes because I pass out pretty easily. But this is very comfortable, and I wanted to see the different stats of my sleep and how it looks. So I was encouraged to do it. So I do really like that about it. You mentioned something. I don't know if it was an example or if you were just like, this is actual. So I want to hear what you have to say about it. So REM sleep, I know a little bit about sleep stages. So awake, of course, like maybe you're like light, you're tossing and turning, versus when you're, up where it catches those disturbances. Light sleep, you're, somewhat able to recover, but it's not, too deep into recovery stage. REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep, this is when you're very physiologically, you're somewhat active. And this is actually when you're usually dreaming. So your eyes, when you I know it sounds weird, but your eyes actually move while you sleep, you're dreaming, and usually your heart rate goes up a bit, and you have deep sleep, or you said it was deep wave sleep?
Slow wave
sleep, which is more so like where
like
optimal recovery happens, where your body is fully rested, your physiology is down, and then you can actually properly recover. You were saying that if REM sleep, like you get a lot of REM sleep, that actually would negative impact recovery?
Not necessarily. That's saying that you're not recovered like the day before. So if you get a lot of REM, I'm just saying in general, like this is what it's told me from my data. So say it like the night before I had a few drinks, didn't sleep a lot, So I went to bed late, and then the next day, I would wake up in the morning, and it would tell me after analyzing my sleep, it looks like you had a lot of REM sleep. It's most
Hmm.
likely because you were making up for not being recovered or not getting
Ah,
enough
I
sleep
see.
lately. Things like
Making up
that.
for it. I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Yeah, because my REM sleep and my deep sleep are usually close to each other. They're not always equal, but they're close. And I know, like, as some psychology major will say something, but whatever. From what I remember from psychology, usually you dream every night, but you don't always remember it. I am a very vivid and active dream. Like, I dream most nights. I remember a good portion of them, or at least detail of them. But that's just cool to see, like, oh wow, I actually like dreamt or might have dreamt for this long in the night. So it's just another like cool measure or data point to see about a part of your physiology.
Have you woken up with any strain before?
I'll have to check, but I don't think so.
I'm guessing you have if you dream a lot.
Huh. I'll have to check that. No, I didn't even think about that. Would it be like point something, or would it be like 1, 2?
I've woken up with like 4.
Wow. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to. Am I able to check that for the past?
No, because it would have your day strain. So
Dang.
just, I guess, look at it
Okay, I'm gonna pay more
in the
attention now when I wake
future.
up, because I always check it when I wake up. So I'm gonna
And
see if I have any strain.
it's actually very normal. So like anywhere from 0 to 4 is pretty
Oh, okay.
standard.
Huh. See, learn all kinds of things about this.
Yeah.
This is really cool. Um, anything we missed on sleep?
Um, I don't think so. I think the biggest thing for me, that I wrote down actually was just how actionable it is. Like you were saying earlier, this is good for like the everyday person. So for example, like my mom is not training for a marathon or anything. She's on Whoop
Right.
and she uses it for her sleep a lot. So she was actually just diagnosed with sleep apnea. So it's very helpful because she was able to see like how many disturbances she had and things like that, and knew her sleep was not good. And she's actually increased it. She's in our group, so you can probably see how much sleep she gets now. And it's actually gone a lot better. Like she's got like
Good.
4 hours.
Good.
So
That's
it's pretty
awesome.
cool.
Yeah. And that kind of leads into one thing I want to add is it does have that competitive community feature too, which is always really cool, which fitness trackers have always done. But it's just cool that you can compete with friends, not just for steps or for calories burned. You're competing with sleep, strain, and recovery, which is always fun because it's always like, who can do the most? I like how Whoop takes kind of that wellness side of things. And it's like, who's recovering the most? And not just
Hmm.
who's sleeping the most, who's getting the best quality of sleep and is ready to tackle their day. So it helps with the people who are like, really high gear and they just like to, crush themselves in the gym. I love those people. I'm one of those people myself, but also it shows people who like really take time and energy to work on their body from a sleep and wellness perspective. So you
Hmm.
get a good balance of both.
Yeah, I think you said it well. It definitely takes into account wellness. And in my perspective, I think it bridges the gap between fitness and wellness pretty well.
I like that. Is that like a tagline? Bridging the gap?
No, no.
Should be. It's a good one. That's a good one. Now, you know me. I, definitely love metrics, definitely love data. That's my go-to. But subjective experience is a very big part of who we are as people. And as we know, just like, yes, stress can be measured biologically, but it also has a huge psychological or subjective component to it, right?
Hmm.
So here's kind of my question, right? Right? Got to have a
Yeah.
little interest in it. Let's say, and I will admit, I've used Whoop for about, I think, almost 3 weeks now. What I always do in the morning is before I look at my recovery, I ask myself on a scale of 0 to 100, how well do I feel I've recovered? Overall, it's pretty damn close, right? It's
Hmm.
somewhere in like the ballpark of like 10, 15%. So I'm like, good enough. There have been some days where it says my recovery was shit. I feel freaking great and I crushed the day. So my subjective did not match my objective.
Hmm.
As someone who knows about Whoop, what would you say? Would you consider like, oh, obviously it's an app and it's, as great as this is, it's not perfect? Or would you say, no, listen to your subjective, or maybe take into account the objective? How do you kind of go about that when you hear that conflict?
Um, this is pretty common. A lot, like Ryan, for example. We'll just crap
Ryan's a
on
good
him real
example.
quick. No, he's always getting upset if his recovery's low, but he feels great. Or if he's like, why am I at 90? I feel like crap. But like I always tell him, like your biggest factor of recovery is your HRV.
Mm.
So if you're balancing stress well, whether you don't like whether you're tired or not, it's likely going to be pretty high if your HRV is compared, if it's high compared to your baseline. So I always tell people that sleep only 15% into your recovery. That's not a huge thing. But your things, if they're low, they're going to be low. And as you know, it's measured continuously, like your resting heart rate are measured in the last 5 minutes of your last wave sleep cycle. So if the cycle has high or low scores, it's okay. Is the most accurate way to do it. But say you wake up, go to bed, or you wake up from the night, you walk around for a little bit, then go back to sleep and edit your sleep to last until like 9 o'clock instead of like 6 o'clock. Mm-hmm. And that slow wave sleep cycle has lower metrics, then your recovery is going to be lower.
Gotcha.
So I always tell people, like, take the data and use it how you will.
Right. Does Whoop have any information? You know me, I like the injury and pain side of things. When it comes to like measuring recovery and strength comparison, is there like we recommend not exceeding your recovery this frequently or by this percentage because it leads to greater risk of injury or illness? Is that kind of a safe thing to say? Or is it more so just a guide for how you could perform?
More of a guide. Having those recommendations, I think, is a big liability. We're not a medical device. So a lot of people will be like, oh, can it tell me this? It give me my diet. No, like we're not a medical device. It's a fitness wearable. So
Gotcha. Big disclaimer, not medical device, helping you with performance.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
That's it. Understood.
Because I think it's so informational that people take it that way, which is awesome. It's awesome that we can provide that much information that people feel that way. But it's just, unfortunately, it's not.
Right. Well, and here's the thing, like, we'll let this cook our noodles a little bit. It's kind of like a closing statement, right? So we talk about placebos and nocebos, right? So like, I'll admit, right? Claire's my friend. I'm like, see this thing, all this data, you know, I'm always an open-minded skeptic. I'm willing to try it as I'm wearing it. I'm actually really enjoying the product. I'm probably going to keep it. Thank you, Whoop, and Claire for the free month. I appreciate that. But of course, my exercise science brain was like, me reading all this data, how is this going to influence my behavior, right? I have a really good recovery day. Am I going to automatically be like, oh, I can just go out and, kill my body in the gym? Versus if it says I have a crappy day and then I'm not feeling, but I'm feeling great instead, like I find myself in that placebo, nocebo category where it's like, the app says this, but I feel this, or vice versa. But you're right. At the end of the day, it's gathering data, and it does have good science behind it, but more so it's for your performance, not to say like you're going to get hurt or like you shouldn't do this. It's just giving you general guidance on performance side of things.
And I think that guidance too does help with, like you said, not getting hurt, because I think it does, if you use the data correctly, I should say, then it can prevent overtraining, it can prevent burnout, things like that. But I think a big thing is like the individual has to be using it the correct way and in a healthy way.
Yes.
And I mean, that goes with everything.
You can obsess with anything,
Yeah, definitely.
And that's kind of like exercise science 101, right? If you do too much, like if you work your ass off and you don't sleep, like I'm pretty sure the general public can like predict that outcome, right? Like that's not a good recipe for success. Don't sleep a lot, have crappy sleep, and then also kill your body, like with working out. Like that's not a good recipe, period.
Yeah, I agree. And I think most people, I would hope, would use the information that they're giving and use it in the correct and healthy ways. And I think Whoop does a good job at kind of promoting using them in a healthy way. Like, use a journal feature.
Yes, I haven't used it yet, but I see it every day. I should probably start trying it because I haven't used it yet, but I like that it has that for people.
Let me show you. This is actually like one of my favorite things. And you probably haven't gotten a monthly performance assessment or a weekly performance assessment yet, right? So these are really cool because it takes your behaviors. The monthly one is the best. Okay. So it takes your behaviors that you're using in your journal, and it will take them and compare them to your recovery, like compare them to your strength, sleep performance, things like that, and basically give you the information of what certain behaviors that you do can impact those metrics, which is the coolest thing to me. So like, for example, cool. I had caffeine 57 times, and it on average improves my recovery 13%. So I will keep having caffeine.
So I thought, silly me, because I've never really like looked and opened it. I thought it was just like you open and you take notes about like, oh, I slept well and here's my day. Is it like survey data?
No. Yeah, I can show you.
What? Okay, well, now I'm definitely gonna use it. I thought it was like record your dream, like dream journal. I'm like,
yeah, like that's my diary.
Yeah.
No, it's like it asks you things based on your behavior. So it basically helps you track why your recovery is low or high. So like my journal questions is completely customizable, so you can pick questions you want. Mine are caffeine, device in bed, fruits and vegetables, hydration, late meal, alcohol, stretching and stress. So that gives me like, so hold on, let me go back to this.
I really like that because another app that I use that I love and will promote the heck out of, hopefully they sponsor me one day, is Train Heroic. And one of the biggest things I like about them is their pre and post workout survey. And the pre-survey, they ask you like, what's your stress level? What's your mood? What's your energy? And they track that over time and as like an aggregate value. So like, that's so cool that like, it's taking the data of like, what are some behaviors you're doing and how is that potentially impacting your recovery? Like that is so neat. And in turn,
your performance then.
Exactly. Right. So it's all connected.
It's huge. It's all connected. So like when I had cold symptoms, my recovery was down 25%, which is a big chunk.
Yeah.
So like having that information is cool because then you know like it's up, it made my recovery up 8%. Like that's a lot.
Yeah.
So I will continue to drink water.
And that kind of goes
you,
to like the whole
more information on your sleep.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it just tells you like, it breaks down your sleep more, it breaks down your activities and your average strength for the activities, things like that. It's just very insightful.
Yeah, that again just goes to wellness because wellness, and I always talk about habit changing, right? Like it's one thing to have a good exercise program or maybe a good, fitness tracker, but how are we actually changing behavior over time? How are we changing habits? That's giving you advice on what habits are doing good for your health and maybe which ones are, not helping you as much in certain aspects. So again, going back to wellness, man, I didn't even know that. So I'm going to start using that journal now. I'm excited. Or diary, whatever. Yeah.
Down to diary.
In my dream journal.
It's pretty cool. And like you were saying, like a lot of people don't realize this, but the biggest, I hate to say this, like the biggest gains are made outside of the gym. Like doing things in your everyday life that heavily impact your wellness and your health are just as important as being active. So absolutely, they can definitely like help those people who are doing everything right in the gym, but not in their personal life or in like their everyday life. That can help them make progress again if they had plateaued.
Yeah. And I'll always promote, hard exercise until the day I die. You have to challenge yourself physiologically. You have to ramp your body up. That's appropriate for your fitness level. But like we know, exercise science 101 is that when you're working out, you're in a primarily catabolic state of breaking your body down physiologically. sometimes psychologically too, right? Depending on what the workout's like for the day. But the goal of the other aspects of wellness and physical health is, okay, what is my ability now to recover and then ultimately adapt from the stress or the strain that I put on my body, right? It's important to be in the gym. It's important to do your thing, your cardiovascular fitness, your resistance training. But if you aren't properly recovering and adapting, you're never going to see those benefits from exercise that you are trying to get. And that's why it's so important to have those other things included.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And too, heart rate variability is a very, like, not finicky metric, but there are very specific things to do to increase it, and then in turn increase your recovery. So having that information, they like purposely put in there things that will negatively and positively impact your HRV most likely. So having that information is very useful, just because, like I said, HRV is very specific in how you would increase it or improve it.
Outside of stress, I'm guessing what? Alcohol consumption?
Yes, that's a big one.
Gotcha.
I have it written down. So the big thing is like the vagus nerve plays a big part in your HRV, just because obviously, well, not obviously, to you and I, it could be obvious, but the vagus nerve is a big controller of your nervous system. So a few things that can improve it is like diaphragmatic breathing, which I am like, Ryan does this all the time because he's like Mr. Meditation.
Right.
So doing that, just basically stimulating that nerve. Cold thermogenesis, which is like adapting or exposing your body to cold temperatures. That could be like drinking very cold water, eating very cold food, or even ice baths. That can stimulate your vagus nerve, hydrating and eating a good diet, and light exposure too.
Nice. See, that's why I'm down here in the Sunshine State. All the vitamin D and cold drinks that I want, right?
There you go. Iguanas.
That's right. Oh, listen. We're not going to talk about that. The business hasn't started yet. It's the iguana business. Will not be advertised on this episode. Future episodes, right. Yes, but I don't have everything put together just quite yet. If you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, that's an inside joke. I'm sure I'll make a shirt out of it or something. Oh, that's such a good idea.
Oh, hey, I got a cricket.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Claire. That's going to be the idea. Cool. Well, I think I covered everything that I wanted to ask you. Is there any other kind of final things on Whoop that maybe we missed or that you think is important to go over?
I don't think so. There was something that you said that like sparked something in my brain. Where you said your body is always adapting and pushing yourself. So you know how your body is always recalibrating, or your Whoop is always recalibrating, right? Mm-hmm. So if you are running like the same 3 miles every day, if you're running at the same pace every day, if you're not changing up a bit or challenging yourself, your strain is going to be lower and lower each time. So I think that's important to note, because that's a good indicator of just your body and your body's ability to adapt to different stimulus.
We're adaptive creatures, and you got to push yourself so that way you can adapt, but also make sure that you're taking care of the other things to recover.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a great place to end.
I think so too.
Covered a lot of really good stuff. Again, this is a cool podcast because talking about a device and a company specifically that's within fitness, the first time we're doing it, hopefully not the last. Claire, thank you so much for taking the time to share all this cool information about the product, about the service, and kind of, what it all does to break it down for people. So if they're interested in potentially getting one, they have at least a little bit of an idea of kind of what it can do for them.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. And then I'll go ahead and link some stuff for me because Claire's awesome. So Whoop has a cool referral program. And Claire, if I fumble any of this, please jump in and correct me. But essentially, if you have a Whoop, you can refer a friend to it to be able to get 1 month for free if you refer a friend. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go ahead and put a link in my description. It's going to be my referral program. So you can get a month for free. And then I also get a month for free. I scratch your back. You scratch mine. Everyone wins. Thank you, Claire. So that's first and foremost. Second, some cool updates to the podcast. No longer using Buzzsprout. Can't say enough nice things about them. They were a great platform. I just decided to go on to another one, and that is called Anchor. Main reason I'm going there is Anchor is going to allow me to be on more platforms. I'm going to be on Spotify still, but I'm now going to also be on Apple Podcasts, which I know Claire has been waiting for. So, but yeah, more people will be able to listen now. I'm in the transition period between the two, so it may not be on for this one, depending on when it gets released and approved by Anchor. But just know in the future, podcasts will be available on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and some other ones as well, which I'll make sure to mention. Also starting a Patreon. So I'll have a link down for Patreon. If you would like to support this podcast with any kind of subscription, I just appreciate y'all's viewership, right? The fact that you're taking time out of your day just to watch some cool information and conversation between friends and colleagues means the world to me. But to continue updating the Shift Method podcast and my brand, any kind of contribution is awesome and greatly appreciated, whatever y'all can give. And of course, I'm going to make sure that I use that money to further make the production better, right? The production quality, like we got a nice new light in here, and anything from editing software or other things that I may need, or also just for the business itself to kind of make the Shift Method keep going. And of course, for those who donate, there will be awesome things that I'll be able to provide for you, whether it's extra content or potential giveaways. I'll make sure that I have stuff that makes it worth your while to really thank you for supporting me. So that link will be down there if you would like to support. And of course, as y'all know, I'm always taking clients. I got some spaces open. Spaces are closing though. I will say I have acquired a few clients recently. So if you're interested, time is running out. If you are interested, go to theshiftmethod.org. You will be able to click any of the take action buttons to see any of my services. Claire actually was part of the Shift Method for a little bit there. So she actually has her client testimonial on there. You can read all about it, watching her squat like a badass on Instagram if you want to see that. But we work with everyone, right? Whether you're dealing with pain and injury, whether you're a health and fitness professional, whether you're an athlete, you name it, can help you out. Just go ahead, fill out one of those forms on the Take Action tab. And of course, follow us on social media at _shift_method. That is for TikTok and Instagram. Got content on there almost daily. Be sure to check it out. Again, _shift_method. Claire, thank you so much again. Really appreciate seeing you, homie. And I hope you have a wonderful night. All right.
Thank you for having me. I hope you do too.
Bye.
Bye.